Could a simple doubling pattern, a vortex-style sequence of numbers, actually point to a 9-year end times timeline? And what does that have to do with what Nikola Tesla once said about the numbers 3, 6, and 9? In my first YouTube video, I discussed a mathematical pattern that may have pointed to something beginning in the Hebrew year 5784, or the Gregorian years 2023 and 2024. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at that pattern and use it to lay a possible framework for the years that follow. Let's start with the math. I won't go into as much detail as I did in my first video, but I will cover the basics to help us understand. If you want a deeper breakdown, I recommend going back and watching that video. It begins with a simple doubling pattern. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 2 equals 4, and so on. When the sum of the digits double, such as 8 plus 8 equals 16, we can reduce the sum down to 7. When repeating this math pattern, we end up with a repeating loop of 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. Notice that the numbers 3, 6, and 9 are not part of this loop. These numbers are set apart. Now let's look a little closer at this repeating pattern, but with a Hebrew mindset. When reading Hebrew, you read from right to left. So let's read this number pattern the same. Now we have 5, 7, 8, 4, 2, 1. When I first saw this number, it was in the Hebrew year 5783, or early 2023, and we were soon approaching the 5784 start date. I then connected the last two numbers, 2 and 1, with the 21st letter in the Hebrew alphabet, the letter Shin. The letter Shin represents fire or teeth, which is symbolic for breaking down or crushing. In addition, I used the 3, 6, and 9 to help connect everything together. Now that we understand the math concept, let's take a step further. Let's see if there are any events that have occurred since that starting point that might suggest we're on track to something more. The Hebrew year 5784 began on September 16, 2023. Now, if we count 21 days from that date, we arrive at October 7, 2023, which is the day Hamas invaded Israel, leading to the current war. October 7th was not just a random day. The attacks took place during the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah celebrates the completion of the annual Torah reading cycle and the immediate start of a new one. During this holiday, the Jewish community reads the last portion of Deuteronomy, Moses' final blessing, then immediately starts back in Genesis, in the beginning. However, this specific day marked a start of a new cycle in the Jewish community, and there's another layer to this. In my first video, I connected the number 21 and the letter Shin to Samson. What's interesting is, Samson's final stand took place in Gaza, the same region that is at the center of today's conflict. Now, let's look at one last connection. In my first video, I suggested that the Hebrew year 5785 could represent a period of grace, and during this time we saw some major shifts. Donald Trump returned to office and began taking action that provided support and strength to Israel in the ongoing war. It was also during this time that we began to see something else happen. Moments of crisis and uncertainty, often leading people to turn back to God. In difficult times, people begin asking deeper questions. They begin searching for truth. And many find themselves returning to church and turning to Jesus. So now that we've made connections between the math and real-world events, let's take the next step. If these patterns are meaningful, then it may be possible to extend the concept and begin to see how things could unfold over time. Not as a prediction, but as a framework, a way to understand the progression. So with that in mind, let's build out a potential 9-year timeline. If we go back to the 3-6-9 pattern, we see them connected to Jesus. Remember, Jesus was crucified in the 3rd hour, darkness was over the land between the 6th and 9th hour, and Jesus said, "It is finished," in the 9th hour. So when you combine that idea with the 3-6-9 pattern, a 9-year structure begins to make sense, not just as a number, but as a full cycle. Starting with the Hebrew year 5784 and moving forward 9 years, we arrive at 5793, which is the year 2032 on the Gregorian calendar. But instead of looking at this as one long stretch of time, it helps to break it into 3 distinct stages. Stage 1 includes 2023 to 2026, Stage 2 includes 2026 to 2029, and Stage 3 includes 2029 to 2032. Stage 1 is the phase where something is set in motion or conceived, where the foundation is established, even if the full picture isn't yet visible. This stage aligns with the third hour in which Jesus was crucified on the cross. And if we look back at what has happened, we can see how things have moved towards times of sorrow. The war in Israel, which marked a major shift. The rapid rise of artificial intelligence, transforming how we live, work, and think. And even a growing awareness, as people begin asking deeper questions and turning back to God. Not a full picture, but clear signs that something has started. Stage 2 aligns with about 2026 through 2029. This is where things begin to take shape, where what started in the beginning becomes more visible. This stage aligns with a time of darkness between the 6th and 9th hours that Jesus was on the cross. Perhaps darkness may begin to cover the earth and the heavens may show signs. As knowledge increases, advancements in AI, deception grows stronger. What began in silence now begins to speak. And then stage 3. This stage aligns with roughly 2029 through 2032. This is the final phase, the moment of pressure, the moment everything reaches its peak. And this mirrors the 9th hour when Jesus was on the cross and said, "It is finished." Perhaps this stage will bring a time when things grow darker, not just physically, but spiritually. A time where truth becomes harder to recognize as systems of power take full control of the world. Whatever happens during this stage will end the cycle and lead to a new beginning. Now let's look at one last thought that could help strengthen the timeline. The scripture speaks of signs in the heavens as the end approaches. It also describes men's hearts failing them for fear of what is coming upon the earth. When I first saw this pattern, I was reminded of the asteroid Apophis. Apophis will make a historically close pass under 20,000 miles by Earth on Friday, April 13, 2029. This event occurs at the end of Stage 2 and marks the start of Stage 3 on our timeline. I then learned about asteroid 2024 YR4. That was originally considered a potential 2032 impact threat to Earth, but has recently been suspected to hit the Earth's moon instead. This event marks the end of Stage 3 on our timeline. Since we've identified significant astronomical signs connected to Stages 2 and 3, I began looking for possible events marking the end of Stage 1 around 2026. At the time, nothing stood out. However, a recently discovered comet is now expected to pass close to the Sun, potentially creating a visible spectacle in the sky around early April. While it may or may not be the sign I was looking for, I'll be watching closely to see what unfolds. I don't know if this pattern or timeline can tell us the exact moment these events will take place. Scripture already makes it clear what things will happen in the end. So I can't say with certainty that the math points directly to that exact time. But what I can say is this: there is enough alignment, enough patterns, and enough real-world connections to keep us watching, to keep paying attention. Because even if we don't know the exact timing, we can still recognize the signs. And more than anything, the most important thing is to turn to Jesus and follow him.